Professor Tanmoy, in the meantime, you can start with the introduction of Dr. V.S. Chauhan so that we use this time. Yeah.
Okay. So, as the schedule is slightly changed, so I'm going to first introduce Professor V.S. Chauhan because he will be the first speaker for today's session. Professor V.S. Chauhan obtained his bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degree in my subject, chemistry, from the Delhi University. In addition to the brilliant academic record, he has also been an outstanding sportsman and represented Delhi University and Oxford University in athletics and cross-country running. He won the prestigious Rhodes Scholarship to study for the DPhil at the Oxford University in 1974. Upon his return to India in 1979, he taught at the St. Stephen College, IIT Kanpur, and University of Delhi. In 1998, he joined the International Center for the Genetics and Biotechnology and became its director in 1998, a position that he held until March 2014. Professor Chauhan is an internationally renowned scientist working in India. His major research interest and the scientific contribution are in the fields of the malaria vaccine and drug development, and in the design and synthesis of the peptides of the biological importance. A malaria vaccine, first of its kind, developed entirely in India, has finished the phase 1 clinical trial in India. His group is working on the development short peptide-based nanostructure platforms for the efficacious delivery of the drug-like molecules for the cancer therapy and development of the novel antimicrobial agents. He has published more about 300 research papers and guided more than 100 research students. Professor Chauhan is an elected member of all the major science academies in India, including Indian National Science Academy and the World Academy of Science. Professor Chauhan is deeply interested in the issues in the higher education and was the member of the University Grant Commission for the 6 years, including his acting chairman in 2017. He is currently the chairman of the Executive Committee of the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAAC, and a member of the committee at the National Institutional Ranking Framework, NIRF, and the Higher Education Funding Agency, among many others. He was the chairman of the peer review committee for the 7th Pay Commission Academia at the institutions of the higher education. He is also deeply involved in the human resource development through the major involvement in the selection process of highly prestigious international scholarships like the Rhodes, ILAC, and Felix scholarships for Indian students to study at some of the top universities in the world. And Professor Chauhan has received several prestigious national and international awards, including the Civil Honor Padma Shri by Government of India in 2012. With this brief introduction, I would like to invite Professor Chauhan. Sir, now the session is for you. Please enlighten us.
Hello.
Yes, sir. We are hearing you, sir. Now, I would like to request sir to take the session now.
You want me to start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
Okay, this is Professor Chauhan. I am sorry.
Sir, I have given only the introduction.
Okay. So, all right. So I'll just start. I think one of the questions which everybody, at least I got a little brief on, how the National Assessment and Accreditation Council and related work will be affected by the virus spread, and how are we going to cope with not only the institution but also the institutions? How will they respond? So my first comment would be that we are not at a situation where we know where the virus is going to go or where the COVID-19 infection is going to go. As a scientist, I realize, and all of us realize, that we are really in the middle of something that nobody can predict where the how it's going to pan out. So we are still struggling with those decisions. we are trying very hard to adopt, all of us, not just NAAC, but everyone, UGC, examination systems, schools, teaching, the whole lot of things are in a flux. And I think policy makers also are reviewing situation on a daily basis. So let me just go back to NAAC's direct question about NAAC. So one of the, although as you know in the modified version of NAAC that that when the institution comes to us, first of all, what does NAAC do? Everybody seems to think, and maybe rightly so, the NAAC job is to look at the snapshot of an institution, where the institution stand quality-wise. But NAAC is only 25 years old, and first 5 years were took in establishment. So, to my mind, where I see as the chairman of the EC of NAAC is the idea of quality itself to be disseminated to a larger number of people. It's not that people who are in education do not know what the quality is, but how to benchmark quality, and on the benchmark, can the institutions first can be made aware of what quality is, and then of course then follow up, advise, and so on. So while a lot of people think, rightly so, that the NAAC's job is to grade institutions, I don't think that is our primary job. Our primary job is to get a institution, college or university or deemed to be university, set some internal benchmark, national benchmark, and then ask the institution or let institution know that these are the benchmark. Can you inculcate them? Can you put them in your practice? Now, Indian higher education system is highly heterogeneous. All of us know that. Still an expanding system. Major expansion took place around 2005, 2006. So very large number of our institutions really are what I call young institutions. So if you look at ISC Bangalore or BHU or Delhi University or Jadavpur or Dharwad or Daughter State University, of course these are well established system and have performed very well in the past. But the large number of institutions are upcoming or new. So what do they understand by quality? What should they look at? So NAAC's major job is to actually set up benchmarks and then not grade them. I think that just to be aware that this is where you are and how to improve. So NAAC spends a lot of time in advising or indicating how the institution can improve. So coming to the NAAC went through a major change a couple of years back, as all of you know, from obtaining information from institution in real time. Now 70 to 80% of information about institutions is collected by digital mode. So there's no human interaction. And I think the system is very well stabilized now. We have more than 5,000 assessors who look at, and these are highly trained teachers who have large experience of in the higher education. 20% or 25% or 30% or some part of NAAC assessment is done physically on the campus, and that's where the COVID-19 becomes really relevant. One might argue that why do you need to go to any campus given modern technology today? So you can have geotags, you can have videography and so on. So one of the physical visits is an international criteria. So NAAC is not only national body, NAAC is accredited and part of a network of international organization. And one of the binding on the one of the steps is that you should make a physical visit, you should be able to talk to students, you should be able to talk to the faculty. So that portion has still stayed. I'll just mention one or two challenges we have both in NIRF and in NAAC and in general, therefore, in assessing the higher education, is the collecting information by the institution, its own information, actually in India is really not a very old phenomenon. In fact, very large number of universities we found had no idea of how to collect their own information. For example, an old university, a very famous university, would not know really what got published in let's say 10 years back because there was no system. NAAC's involvement has increased this awareness. That and I think that's one of the major achievements of NIRF and NAAC is not as much in grading and ranking as much in making people aware how to put their information together. Trust me, this has taken a long time, but now more and more institutions are geared to collect their own information. Now, once you have information collected, then of course you can see where do you stand around the benchmark. The current COVID position has stopped us in our track, as it were, in the processes because the physical visits are not possible. So the question is then, what do you do in the case of this? So I think we are watching the situation. I still do not think we want to do away with the not making a physical visit. I have talked around to a lot of people that even 1/5 of the assessment when the people visit, and we've streamlined that a lot. Instead of large groups going for a long time, I think our visits are small, visits are much more focused, visits are less intrusive. A lot of choices are given to the institution what they would like us to look at. Plus, our assessors have been now not, I wouldn't say were trained because they are very good, they're highly professional, but bring into the system that how to make the dealing of NAAC with the institution as friendly as possible. So that's all in place. Now, there are regulatory bodies say that you should have a NAAC accreditation running. So at no time you should, it's mandatory. At no time you should not have a NAAC. So a lot of institutions in the time of COVID wrote to us. We are aware of it. They had already applied. So one of the decisions which we've taken that we'll wait and watch, and we'll tell the institutions that don't worry, whatever your earlier grading or accreditation was, that will be valid at least, I would say at least for a year. So this is the gap time where visits cannot be made. Even institutions are finding difficult to put their data, collect their data because physically staff cannot go. And I find a lot of institutions take NAAC accreditation very seriously now, and it involves a lot of work on the part of faculty. So that's so what I've said is one of the questions how the accreditation will adopt. I don't think we'll change anything in a hurry. A system will remain exactly what it is, but we will give this is what I call grace period, and hopefully, depending on how the infection or virus plays out, we will evaluate. But physical visits will not be sacrificed as of now. So there was a suggestion you can do online visits, but I think finally so as of now we've taken the decision that won't be able. The whole point of physical visit is a physical visit. Otherwise, about the infection, I'm a scientist by training. About the COVID itself, I think how the higher education system would respond to it, I think we end up responding to it as things change. For example, a major question right now is the third year, the leaving year students, should they be examined or not? And you can see word over there are different responses. Within India, there are different responses. Different states are responding differently. There are arguments for taking exams, which is a part of regulation. There are arguments that it will be tedious to examine people, and I have neither this side to take nor that side to take. If it was so easy, then one would have taken one side or the other. But as things stand, Delhi University would have exams starting from the 10th of August. Brief statement about online education and what might be the future long-term impact of a pandemic like COVID-19. Pandemic like COVID-19 are very unusual to say the least. So we have had infections in past 30, 40 years at regular interval. So we did have HIV pandemic, we had Ebola pandemic, we had H1N1 pandemic, we had SARS-1 pandemic. So the word in that sense is used, I must get used to pandemics. They were all pandemics, except for the present one. The virus is so very infective that it has spread very fast, and the health systems are finding it difficult to deal with. Eventually, we'll deal with them. We'll have medicine. We may have vaccine in next 8 or 9 months. But what impacts does it do on higher education? Is it going to be irreversible impact, or is going to be transitory impact? I think time will tell. But all of us have realized, for example, the present interactions we are having, all of us have realized that, at least I think that, a large part of governance of university and colleges. I use the word governance very. Hello. Now I use the word governance, that is meetings for the governing bodies, for the ECs and so on. I think that can be handled by this. What happens to teaching? So, from where I understand, if digital technologies were to mature, as they would mature, I think there will be a chunk of education, at least a small chunk, that may go by the distance mode or online mode. But let me tell the audience in India that even much before COVID, or before any sense of infection, the full online courses were very much in the offing. So when I was chairman of UGC, we formed up the regulation for open distance learning, and the next move is going to be, and probably will be, and it's already part of policy, is a complete online education. Now we can argue for and against complete online education till the cows come back. There will be positive, there will be negative. Argument in favor is that this is the only way to expansion or reach people whom you haven't been reached. Argument against this is that university education is not about learning from a screen. University education, or idea of university, is to be in the classroom as well as outside the classroom. And I think these discussions will take place for a long time. What I think will be different, that we will find some part of education, or some kind of education, will lend itself more to online education. I can take example, I don't wish to name it, but for example, management studies or law, or maybe a couple other subjects. I think they lend themselves to online sort of education, because my argument has been the recipient of online education has to be extremely disciplined, extremely serious. Just as a giver of education on online. Online is not just recording some lecture and putting them on the net on a portal, and people will. If you want quality online education, then I think discipline and quality online education will be much more than the discipline that you see when you do physical teaching. So for both a tutor and tutee, this sense of discipline has to be amazing. Otherwise, you'll end up giving degrees or giving education, then you'll worry about quality. The problem is this, that if the top university, education, like it or not, is a brand. So people don't mind spending $70,000 to go to Harvard or Cornell, or £55,000 to go to Oxford. I'm taking international scenario, forget about India for a minute. But would you, or should you, or parents would pay that kind of money when you do not physically go to campus. I think these will be becoming serious issues. If top university, let's say top 50 universities in the world, actually roll out some programs full-time online, as the virus is right now pushing us into that direction, would their enrollment not increase then? Instead of having a class of 40 at Yale, why would Yale Business School not or should not have a class of 500, or for that matter 5,000, or for that matter 10,000? And then hire more people, have more structure, and do a very good job of online education. So the question is, can you do very good online education? Let's say the answer is yes, for a minute, for some subject. If that answer is yes, then I cannot see why the brand of a top university cannot be expanded. Immediately the question would be, would a top university dilute its brand? When it teaches only 500, would it give degree to 50,000? If technology matures, why not? If that happens, then this is my final comment on this. If that happens, then the top 50 university will end up taking very large number of students on their board, at least in some subjects. Then the universities which are not so top branded or in the lower or in the middle are the ones who's going to lose this clientele. If that happens, then the university which largely are private in USA, UK, New Zealand, Australia, I think there will be serious problems about economics of education. So will that happen or not? I don't know. Is it likely to happen? Yes. Will top university, as it were, dilute their brand? The jury is still out. They may or they may not. If they did, then of course you will have a lot of people from, let's say, India or China or South Korea or Middle East getting MBA degrees sitting in their own countries or some other top universities. A logical consequence of this would be then, when you have this top brand university having given very good quality online education to much larger number of people, would the employer at the end of all kinds will make difference between those who go to physically receive education versus those who get online education? We don't know. We don't know if both modes in all subjects will go on or not. So there are a lot of question marks, but should this mature, the economics of education, higher education in the top universities will really change. You must have recently heard what the American government said, that if it's going to be online education, then students need not come to US. Actually, their visas should be cancelled. And of course, Harvard and MIT were the first one to go to the court. And very quickly, the government changes position. So if you seriously ponder on this, I think that the issues that I mentioned just now are the core issues. 1 minute on the science or research at the university, because universities are supposed to do research. So you can hand out a lot of online education in law or in some others, or business management and so on. What happens to your research output? Would it matter for the international ranking research output? Can research be done online? If you push people to research, of course research can be done online. But science research, we know, cannot be done online. You have to be physically in the lab. If you're an astronomer, you have to be physically next to a telescope, and so on and so forth. So will the campuses then have students who need labs or physically need to be there, product design or architecture? I think these are the questions which next half year or year will roll out. What we do know now for this year, the real disruption has happened this year. Most universities have declared they will not have any physical students coming, international coming to their campuses. What will happen to Indian institutions like IITs or Central University or colleges? We still just don't know. I think we'll wait and watch. The exams will be done, the new admissions have to be done, and I think policymakers are very much aware of it, especially Government of India, MHRD are making on daily basis they are aware of that these things have to be taken care of. And from what I can see, there are meetings, there are various ways of dealing with it. Virus is still not quieted. I think virus is still in the expansion mode. Yesterday, the 256,000 people all over the world were infected. So if we had the seminar about 3 months from now or 4 months from now, we might be more in a position to say which way dice might roll. But the education through the distance mode, online mode, I cannot see is not expanding and not maturing. I'll make the last comment. If this mode of education has to firm up in Europe, in US, and then in developing countries like India, then technology exists, but it has to get much better. I do a lot of webinars, etc. Many times connections are lost, bandwidth is not enough. All of you know about those problems. So they need to be firmed up. So I think I'll stop here. If there are any queries related to what I've said or I haven't said, I'll be very happy. Unfortunately, later on I have to go to hospital. There's a family. There's no hurry just now. I have still some more time. So let me stop here and take up any issue that you wish me to take up.
Thank you, sir, for making it despite your family issues. You took our summit seriously and came here. We are happy to have you here, and it was really good session by you, knowing the role of NAAC for those people who are still, working in higher education institutes but not directly connected to NAAC or the role of NAAC. And very nicely put up the role of international universities, how the future will unfold. And yes, Harvard University is rolling out MBAs, but during summer schools right now. So I think economy of education is definitely a big question for all these countries because they earn a lot of finances from overseas students. Thank you, sir, for being here. As of now, I think there are no questions put up on the question and answer panel. So in the meantime, I will ask my participants. Dr. Chauhan is here for a couple of minutes more. If you have any query, please type in question and answer session.
Well, I can be here for another 15-20 minutes, so you can have the next speaker if you like.
Yes.
I have time till about 5:15. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Professor Tanmoy, please carry on.
Thanks, Professor Chauhan, to enlighten us about the very important topics of the quality of the higher education, especially, and then also the other things also you have touched upon, like pandemic scenario, then the finances of the academic institutes. Now we'll go for our schedule, and now I would like to introduce my mentor. For him, if I say anything, that will be this, because I have worked with him very closely, and it is my proud privilege that today I am going to moderate his session. Professor Sandeep Sancheti is a renowned name of the Indian higher education. Nobody can deny on that, and I have learned a lot. Whatever I have achieved today, actually I would like to give the credit to him. So Professor Sandeep Sancheti is known as the institutional peddler, holds a PhD from the Queen's University of the Belfast, UK, MSc Engineering from the Delhi Technical University, and the BTech from the NIT Warangal. He is currently the Vice Chancellor of the SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Chennai, and also the immediate past President of the Association of the Indian University. Formerly, he was the President of the Manipal University, Jaipur, Director NIT Delhi, and Director NIT K. Suratkal. He has also served as the Director in charge NIT Tiruchirappalli, NIT Calicut, School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi, and mentor director of the NIT Goa, NIT Pondicherry, and NIT Sikkim. In past, he was a member of Governing Council ESCI Hyderabad, member Executive Council AICT New Delhi, Chairman AIEEE, Chairman DASA, Chairman QIP Poly, and Scheme of the AICT, member Governing Advisory Board of the CBSE New Delhi, BCCI Mumbai, SAI New Delhi, NCT New Delhi, NIRDR Hyderabad, and Academic Advisory Board of Microsoft India. Presently, he is the chairman of Board of Governors MLB Textile Engineering College, Government of Rajasthan, Bhilwara, and Jodhpur Institute of the Engineering and Technology, Jodhpur. He is also the member of Council of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. In addition, he is on various national level bodies of the UGC, ICT, AIU for higher education related matters and has been the part of the Indian delegation abroad. He is a recipient of the Commonwealth Scholarship and Fellowship under Colombo Plan. He is a Life Fellow of IETE, IESTE, BES, and a member of IEEE USA. A keen sports person, he is also a Rotarian and a mentor for the Atal Innovation Mission. With this short review, a short introduction, I would like to request her to enlighten us about the higher education scenario.
Thank you, Dr. Tanmoy Chakraborty, for a very generous introduction. It was not short, it was pretty long for the webinar of this nature, but I appreciate it. Also, thanks to Dr. Vaneeta Aggarwal for this invitation for this webinar, because there's a great deal to learn from each other. Of course, we do share our views, but there is a lot of learning and then maturing in terms of decision making. And it was very nice to hear on this occasion that Professor Chauhan, in spite of some important engagements, decided to give time to this particular webinar. Sir, I'm very happy that I'll be echoing some of the views which you have just now shared, and that gives me a little bit more support in terms of what I'm saying, because I'm actually talking about the future roadmap. And you know that the future is something which is not so well known or cannot be so well controlled, or we are probably harping in dark sometimes and we are going into the future. I'm also very happy that my very, very good friend, former colleague, I would say in AIU, Professor Swarup is also here, and also Professor Sandermoen is also joining us from Canada. So I welcome the co-panelists also for this particular session. And of course, our theme is challenging and mastering the uncertain times of, for higher education. And within that, my responsibility is to talk about the future roadmap. Friends, as far as I'm concerned, I would say that future is something very, very difficult to predict. And I think there is no better example than to use the example of Corona to prove that 6 months back, maybe 31st of December 2019, when we slept, we probably didn't know what will be happening in the 2020, the new year which we were trying to celebrate. And we have seen that the almost 5 months in this particular year have been completely out of our control. So future is something very difficult to manage sometimes, and mastering it obviously is something beyond us. Managing it is something what we can try. And in that case, I would say that all of us, whether it's the private institutions or the government institutions, all have their beauty and all have their value, and all of them are trying something. And we'll talk about that. I'll also share some of the points which probably were touched upon by Professor Chauhan just now. One of the points would be very common with him, but the other 2 points will be slightly different, which he might have touched slightly obliquely only. So number one, when we talk about the future, what we need is a proper planning and a proper strategic plan, I would say. Plan sometimes we have, but a strategic plan is probably much more deeper thing, in my opinion, which is required. A strategic plan for me would be a plan which will possibly deal with the aspects of what are the kind of human resources I will need, what are the kind of finances I will need for each category of work and sub-work or subcategory of work. How much time am I going to assign to a given work, and how much of aspirations I have? How would I measure what I'm achieving or I'm not achieving, and how will I control the quality of it? I think if everything is put together and understood by all the stakeholders, then I will call that as a strategic plan. Unfortunately, it is missing in most of the top institutions. I may be wrong here and there, exceptions are there, but in general, people don't understand the dynamics of that. They do have some plans, they do have some objectives, They do have something short-term or maybe long-term, which we have understood because vision and mission have become compulsory for institutions to have, especially when they're going for the accreditation, NBA or NAAC alike, and therefore we find it hanging on all the walls in all the institutions. But when we ask the faculty, the meaning of that is generally not very well understood. That is the problem that we have with the planning, that while we are trying to do something, showcase something, but we don't have our heart into it, and therefore we need to be very, very careful about what we require. So essentially speaking, when we talk about the future, we require solid planning, we require a proper foundation, we require proper investment, and we don't necessarily need to go into shortcuts, which we use many times or many cases. In India, we are quite famous for many quick fixes, and that is not good, I would say. We should generally take a long-term view and stick to it. Maybe small course corrections would be required. And long-term view, basically, we know that the education is a slow-moving sector. World over, the top institutions have taken their time to come to the position they are today. And we also find that even IITs or IIMs, they are enjoying a very good ranking position amongst all in India today or outside. They have taken their own sweet time. And therefore, there is no harm in saying that we have made a start and we have made a good and steady beginning and will make our plans fructify into something called reality. And that is the way the future has to be seen. This attitude, what we sometimes call as chalta hai, has to go away from the Indian culture and more so from the educational culture. And I'm saying we are not the only ones to be blamed, neither the promoters, nor the government, nor the teachers. Even the students will have to be seen into that light, that this chalta hai attitude has to go. I think when we talk about the future, when the students part of it, when they come to the class, they're more of a read about how to bunk the class or how to go to a movie outside or how to just pass and get the grade they desire rather than learning they want to or they should have. And therefore, this chalta hai attitude should go away. And that's when we can say that the future can be better, secure. I have taught outside India. I have been a student outside India also, and I can very well say that that seriousness sometimes is lacking, and that is probably harming our, you can say, the preparation for the future challenges which we have. One special thing which I'd like to say about the future is possibly that all of us, particularly government, are very much focused on access, equity, and transparency, which is very good. The government and the private institutions are very much focused on what we call the expansion and the quality aspects also because of the NAAC and NBA. So you can say that yes, both the private and government are doing that. But I would say that we need a value which probably is slightly better in the private sector, self-finance sector right now, and that has to go to the government also, is the efficiency, the speed, and the diversity. All these components are generally very limited. Efficiency, we know about the government. I need not say much. Once again, the speed is also very slow in terms of any changes or decision making. And diversity, we see a lot of unique kind of institutions which are also doing very well. I think they need to diversify. I think commissions after commissions have said that we need to have multidisciplinarity and various other things. And hopefully this will happen because I can see that many institutions are trying to do, particularly the IITs. And that will make us future ready, future proof, because we can deal with anything. So with that as a background, if I come to 3 specific answers for the future roadmap, I think my first answer would lie exactly with what Professor Chauhan was trying to say. I'm a big fan of what we call the distance education. I'm a big fan of use of technology in education, and that's where the distance education also comes into play. I was fortunately part of the Distance Education Council also for quite some time, and therefore I know it from inside, and I can say that it has a huge potential. And our problem is with all those things which I just now narrated, we did not nurture it carefully. We did not really care for it. We simply, possibly I would say, spoiled it or played with it or misused it to some extent, or we were probably quantity conscious in that, and we are not quality in processes conscious or outcome conscious in that. When it happened, at least for 15, 20, 30 years when it happened, of course, we put the brakes on it technically around 2012, 13 when the deck was dismantled. but later when more orders and more regulations were put for distance education. I'm a big fan, and therefore I would say that whether it is a distance education or virtual education, as was used by Chauhan Saab also, or online education, or I prefer to call it flexible education, or anyone can call it as any education. It doesn't matter. I think that will be the future of the education. Why I'm saying is the formal education happens between the age of 15 to 25 years. And we are generally UG program centric. We are highly specialized courses we have started giving, whereas the UG is not supposed to be highly specialized. If it is highly specialized, then we are only catering to them for their immediate requirements for the job and not necessarily for the life. That's the challenge which we are facing. So if we have to prepare something for the future, I think the undergraduate education should be very broad based. Unfortunately, if I see engineering as an example to which I belong to, particularly electronics and computers, it is going to more and more highly specialized domains. So many people are falling over the artificial intelligence as the only subject which will make their life. I think it's a wrong notion because things will change in time. I think the UG education should be broad-based, not only for engineering, for everyone. Yes, job interest should be there. You can develop some extra expertise if you want to do job, but not at the cost of, you can say, compromising on your basic education. That's a challenge which we face between the age of 15 to 25 years. I'm using 15 because sometimes at the polytechnic level or diploma level also, entry is little early, and I'm using 25 because it can go slightly longer. Sometimes late entrants are there, and therefore in that age, we need to be very careful to have a broad-based education to be delivered. But look at the later age group, beyond 25, going up to 65 or 75. Today, all of us, in whatever group we may be, we tend to read, we tend to learn, and some of us are acquiring degrees. I've seen people at the age of 80 writing voluminous work or delivering voluminous work to obtain PhDs and DSCs and whatnot. And therefore, there is a trend towards higher education, learning a lot of things, and that I will call non-formal education. There is a huge value for the non-formal education, and we should cater to it, and we should plan and deliver that excitement to all the potential students that you can learn the what you want to learn, when you want to learn at any age, and for that, distance education would be the important thing. I think Professor Chauhan did say that, and I re-quote that. So if in future you want to be knowledgeable, you want to keep pace with the changing world, I think distance education should be promoted, propagated, should be adhered to rather than looked at with some disdain, which is generally happening in the current set of world, that distance education is too much regulated, controlled, slow moving, and then by default, all of us look down upon that. I think that we should go out. The second point, which for future I would like to say, is once again partly touched by Professor Chauhan, that was about the financing of it. I would say that this model in India, to me, seems to be very unusual because we are the only, probably one of the larger developing countries where the financial model is inverted. A good quality school education in India is very, very costly, and whereas the high quality, good quality, higher education is very, very cheap and very easy relatively, whereas in the world it does not happen. So we have an inverted pyramid. We need to think about what is that inverted pyramid. Another example which I'd like to give to you is think of a situation like COVID, which has happened right now. Most of the institutions are finding it difficult to manage their show in these times because they never had corpuses. They never had the financial backing they required, whether in the government or outside. They never saved the money for a rainy day like this, and therefore the challenges are there. In fact, the private set of institutions to which I belong to now, earlier I was in government for 29 years, I would say that we are not allowed to be making a reasonable saving or a profit, or rather we are called as a not-for-profit. And therefore, let's understand that if it is not for profit, huge investments will not come, people from outside will not come, FDIs will not come, bigger institutions will not happen. Yes, the education will happen, we'll still do the teaching learning, but that quality which requires a lot of investment probably would not happen. And therefore, my suggestion for India's future education, especially if you want to break into top ones, I think that tag of not-for-profit has to be rethought, and we should look into that. And I would say that we should charge a reasonable fee. I need not name the top institutions in the country where the fee is, or the universities particularly, I would say, fee charge is peanuts, probably one evening's expenditure to be put by a student in a restaurant is what we charge as an annual fee for them to deliver quality education. I think we should rethink on that particular policy. Yes, I agree. We should subsidize where the affordability is less, but those who can afford and should afford should pay the right amount of things, because the same guys, same people, when they go outside India, they probably pay 50 to 100 times the fee we are trying to charge. And therefore, we should not miss this opportunity that we do the new financial remodeling if we have to survive in the future. And we should give more financial autonomy to the institutions, and we should have more financial better models for institutions to survive. And all these are unions and other things which they try, every time you try to raise a 5 rupee or 10 rupee fee charge, I think there'll be protests. They should learn that things come at a cost, and they should also contribute to what they want to deserve or what they want to get from the university. That's my second point for the future. If we want to change, I hope some of the policymakers and bureaucrats will probably understand. I'm ready to give more insight into that why and how it should be done. The third and the last point, my dear friends, from my side is something very unique, I would say, and that's something very, very close to my heart and probably most important for us to be future ready. I'm sure many of you know directly, indirectly, you probably would have it in your heart, but nothing much has happened in the Indian context. And what I'm trying to say is that today our education is regulatory centric or regulation centric, or I can call it institutional centric. I, as the head of the institution, whatever I say happens or should happen. If it is not institutional centric, I will say it's teacher centric. Whatever teacher ends up saying in the class becomes the rule of the game, and then it's teacher centric. I think all these models, in my opinion, are wrong. The future should be customer centric. Customer is a student, and therefore it should be student centric. I can only give you in a one line an example that today we teach what we want to teach them, but they do not learn what they themselves want to learn. That's the dichotomy under which our entire system is operating. Today, whether it's an examination or course curriculum or the course, I think the regulations come from the top, and the limitations are that the students, poor students who are paying for it or are supposed to receive it, are forced to do certain things which they may not like. So actually speaking, in our educational institutions, we have enslaved them. And therefore, we are trying to control their future. We have kind of bound them in a certain way, and we are not delivering the student centricity. And therefore, my third and final answer is we have to deliver a student centric model, which is, by the way, the name given to what we call Education 4.0 also. And I must say that UGC, fortunately, which also was represented where Chancellor was the chairman, is also working on the NAAC model today, and this is called National Academic Credit Bank, and it is delivering or going to deliver in its plan. It has highly interdisciplinary model of education. It can also allow someone to be controlling the time and the speed of the education. I can do a 4-year course in 3 years or 2 years, 2.5 years, or I can do the 4-year course in 6 or 7 or 8 years also. I can do it in piecemeal. I can do it modular also. I can cut down the cost. I can take the multiple institutions. I can use various languages. I can possibly go outside the country and do the credit transfers and various things which I can do. And hopefully in times to come, it will also allow the major degrees, the minor degrees, the dual degrees, the integrated degrees also. Various other facets of this education will be there, which will make the education, whatever we call the student-centric. One other word which we are coining, because I'm also working in that particular framework right now, it's not yet finalized. I think there will be a degree of liberal education given. Suppose I end up choosing too many diverse subjects without a focus, which is what I want to do because I just have my business. I just want to learn what I want to learn and I'll continue in my business. I can do anything which I want in terms of my education. Then I'll possibly have what I call the liberal education degree given to me, like it is done for liberal arts right now. So that is the kind of thing which is what we need to deliver so that the customer is this thing. And one thing which will happen to support this, you can very well argue that a young student will not be mature to know what he wants. Then I must tell you that there are tools like GPS. GPS tells you if you want to go from here to an X place to Y place. It tells you all the alternatives, cost, time, this, that, maybe the congestion, and everything is being given to you. In the same way, GPS-like thing, there will be a thing which will be coming in future, which will be called SPG, Students Personal Guidance System for Education, and that will tell you that if you want to reach from here to here, do this and that, and this is your ultimate aim. It will tell you many paths, many costs, many ways, many other aspects of the whole thing will be given to you, and that's how the student will be counseled, and that's how they'll be able to take advantage of what I call as NAAC. So my dear friends, like we enjoy our life with what I want to wear, I wear, what I want to eat, I eat, like what transport I want to use, I use. I think the same thing would be available to students in terms of education. Right now, something is there, some limited electives are there, but not much, but it will become very, very flexible in times to come, and that is how we'll make the higher education future-proof or future-ready. That's my take. Thank you so much, Dr. Tanmoy and Dr. Aggarwal. I'll be ready for any questions, if any, and look forward to hearing the other expert panelists. Thank you. Dr. Tanmoy.
So it is nice to hear you, sir. And as Professor Sancheti has mentioned, he has portrayed that the future education pathway. And what is the takeaway from us for us is that he mentioned a couple of things like that the student-centric and any-time learning. These are the things which I think also Indian higher education should learn about from that, and definitely that what is the framework he has mentioned, we have to adopt anyhow. Now we'll go for the next panelist because the question answer session has been scheduled at the end. So
Professor Tanmoy, because Dr. Virendra Chauhan has to leave. Okay, there is one question coming up, and it was in my mind also. Will NAAC guidelines be revised to assess quality of e-learning? Dr. Chauhan.
We already actually have a manual if you went to the so about 3-4 years back, as previous speaker just now said, there was no regulation for ODL, and ODL was almost free for all. And when the ODL was done, then immediately the question, how would you judge ODL? So there's a manual already created for open distance learning. This was done by a very large number of people involved in it. I think it's come out extremely well. It's on the website now, already available. And if the business goes, the business for education goes online, then I think it will be just an extension of what we've done for ODL. I still go back to what I said. The talking about online education, anytime education is much easier than to imagine what kind of discipline it would require both from the teacher and both from the student. That is generally being ignored right now. It seems like online education put something on online and the teacher would have recorded something and students will merrily take it up if and then they want. I think that anyone who says online education, that's the future, which I agree, should ponder about the quality of online education. But to answer your question pointedly, we already have manual for ODL, and e-learning or totally online courses will be only just an extension of what we already have. The benchmarks are already there. It won't be easy because there'll be, if online education becomes free for all, then of course there'll be all kind of people in it. But as you do ODL, you do online. I don't see that as a major problem.
Sir, I have one more question. In like Amity University has opened, claiming to be first online university in India. So, where can we find the guidelines to open an online university? If some of the existing university wants to go.
Yeah, so I'm not going to address a particular university's question, but government has now asked top 100 university in NIRF to start online courses. This is already they've been asked. So I think we just wait another 3-4 months and see whether it can be standalone online education university, or they have to be embedded in people who are doing education like ODL is right now. I think it'll take some time. If we have this seminar 4 or 5 months from now, you'll have answer to some of the questions. I would not address a specific university, what they're doing, what they're not doing.
Sure, sure. Thank you, sir.
I'll push on. Okay.
Professor Tanmoy, please.
Yeah. Now, as per the schedule, we will go for the next panelist, Mr. Kjetil Sandermoen. He is the chairman of the University of the Fredericton. The University of the Fredericton, first online accredited degree granting university, was founded by Mr. Kjetil Sandermoen and Mr. Don Roy in 2005 with a vision way ahead of the current times. With more than 30 years of experience in the higher education, he is also the mind behind the Sandermoen School of Business, which is a part of the evolution in online teaching. Indeed, its vision is to be recognized as a leader in the online world of education. It delivers the fully online pre-MBA, MBA, and executive MBA programs, master certificate, and various specialty stream options designed to help the students to reach their unique career aspirations. Sandermoen now carries the Canada's first MBA and EMBA in social enterprise leadership. His company, Sandermoen Learning Solution, provides the e-learning technology and the corporate training on employee, management, and the leadership levels. In partnership with the leading academic institutions and e-learning providers, they offer a unique combination of the higher education and e-learning technology, enhancing the user experience of the students and learners all over the world. These higher education institutes work accordingly to the values and the high standards set by the founding chairman, Mr. Kjetil Sandermoen. Kjetil is a renowned management consultant, former principal associate and professional director of the Advices Institute. He has applied the Advices methodology since 1988. First certificate in that methodology from 1988, certified in the advanced phase of the methodology, facilitated major change programs in the companies leading to the vastly improved business performance. He worked globally with over 100 companies, big and small, in all kinds of the industries and both in the private and public sector. Broad international experience. He has worked in the 24 countries on the 5 continents: Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Germany, and so on. And he is working with the CEO and senior management teams and economists from the Karlsland University, Sweden. And previously he worked experience with the Norway Ministry of Finance, Publishing, NGO, IT, and as a founder of the own business. He is the author of the books of Organizational Structure, Making Strategy Happen, and Management Consulting. It's for the dummies. He knows a good number of the languages like Norwegian, English, German, as well as Danish and Swedish. With this small introduction, I'd like to request Mr. Sandermoen to enlighten us.
Thank you for that very nice introduction, and I'm very honored to be on this panel, and thank you for this opportunity. I am a businessman rather than an academic, but I have experience from online business, and then especially for higher education, online higher education. Being a Norwegian, doing my business in Canada, living in Switzerland. I'm in Switzerland and not in Canada now. It's only natural for me that I very early started to look at the opportunities of providing education online so that we could reach a more global market. What I would do is to share with you some of my general insights about how to embrace changes as opportunities. And then I have some specific insights about what is happening now in higher education and what has been also accelerated by the present COVID-19 crisis. Let me start by taking you 25 years back in time. I mean, if you have reached my age, 25 years seems not to be very long ago, to be honest. But if you're 30 years old, and our students are in postgraduates are between 30 and 40 or 40 plus, then 25 years is most of your life. But let me take you back to 1995. In 1995, I founded my first online learning company together with a couple of other business partners, and we provided practical short management courses in, for example, subjects like decision making, how to communicate with different styles. Second, I have some terrible background sound. I believe someone is maybe having an unmuted microphone. I can hardly hear myself. Is it on my side? Okay, that's better. So we had very good content in this, and we had courses in English, in French, in Spanish, in Norwegian, in Swedish, in Danish. I'm sure the content was very good, but it did not become a commercial success. And there can be many reasons why we didn't succeed in making this commercially successful. But I'm sure the main reason was that we were simply 15 years too early. We saw an opportunity of making online training. This was online management training and not higher education. And the changes that were created by the internet had at that time not yet been fully recognized by the broader market. So our potential clients were simply not ready for online learning yet. So my first general insight is that if you embrace changes or opportunities too early, you will very likely fail. The opposite is also true, that if you are too late in embracing change because it's inconvenient or because you don't see it or you don't like it, you will probably also fail, or at least not be as successful as you could be. I saw a very interesting discussion the other day between two Norwegian businessmen. One said that he was sure now that home offices would be the new standard because of the COVID-19 experiences, and he proudly said that his company would now provide home offices for all their employees, and they could work from home when they wanted. The other businessman claimed the opposite, that working from home means hiding away and is a kind of social isolation that is bad both for the employees and for the business. It's maybe not surprising to know that the first businessman is in charge of the largest telecom company in Norway, and he wants to promote his products as tools for working from anywhere. And the other one is a founder of several hotels and traveling agencies. His business is, of course, to provide facilities, accommodations, both for business meetings and for leisure. So my second general insight is that we embrace the changes that benefit us and try to forget or talk away all the others, and it's a very dangerous strategy. My third insight would be that only years of experience could give me that changing to a new situation, whether it's driven by an opportunity or a crisis, would take a long time. I think the first presenter addressed this topic also, that you will probably not see the fruits of the change before several years later. I mean, there's a lot of talk about mastering change or managing change. I think it's more about risk taking, about timing, and about being patient rather than about techniques and methodologies and how to do it. When we founded University of Fredericton 15 years ago, we set it up from the beginning as being fully online. It's for undergraduates. We have MBAs, EMBA degrees. We're working on a doctorate degree. We will have associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees. It was set up from the beginning by design to be 100% online. Actually, we were the first in the world 100% online university from the beginning by design. We were, of course, like with NAAC in India, we were under accreditation rules, and we had to comply with the same standards and the same regulations as any other university. And an interesting aspect, also mentioned by the first speaker, by Dr. Chauhan, is that he said something like where did I note it? He said something like, in India, we have a lot of very young institutions. That is true, I know that. The problem for young institutions is that if you have to work within an industry that has very conservative compliance requirements, you are forced into a kind of behavior that is not necessarily good for a young industry and for necessary changes. This is what we experienced also when we went through the accreditation process. But anyway, our technology, our faculty, our approval processes, registration, payment system, everything is set up for online delivery. And based on the fact that we have no physical constraints. Now, our offices in Fredericton, in New Brunswick, the province of New Brunswick in Canada, is crossed by a big river that crossed through Fredericton. And almost each spring, this river creates huge floodings. So we decided from the beginning to organize our operation 15 years ago with backup options for all employees to be able to operate from home offices if and when there was a flood that made it difficult to come to the office. So we had at least a dual set of our technology and our delivery systems. So almost by a coincidence, by being prepared for something else, we were by design created for this crisis, the COVID-19 crisis. We didn't even have a minute of disruption, and we were able to handle and have been able to handle the huge increase in applications from as a consequence of the crisis from all over the world. So our timing couldn't have been more perfect than this, but we were prepared for something else that gave us this opportunity. And there's no doubt online education is not talking about future. Online education is here, and it's taking a larger and larger part. And I'm very concerned about being as how should I put it, to comply with the same requirements and the same standards as traditional higher education institutions, if I put it that way. But even more so, to also be able to respond to the requests of the students and to be sure that they get what they pay for and that there's a reasonable cost-benefit equation in this. Now, if I scroll fast forward to 2020, and I'm sure that 25 years ago, no one, and absolutely not me, could predict the changes that we are constantly having to cope with now. I mean, There's political instability all over the world. We are experiencing serious disruptions globally in the global economy that I'm at least very worried about. We have social networks and new ways to meet each other that have changed completely how we behave, internet and so-called social platforms. Technology is a great driver for the changes that we're seeing, and particularly now the artificial intelligence that will also influence on higher education are for the first time able not only to make how we produce products more effective, because all technology up until now has been about how can we be more effective, but artificial intelligence is actually now even able to define what to do. And up until now, that was reserved for human beings to define. So here are huge opportunities, but there's also huge threats and concerns that we have to be able to capture and to handle and master in a good way. So technology is now even able to make choices for us, and even ethical choices, and this constant and substantial changes and instability has come to become the new normal. And then, as if all this was not enough, we got a pandemic with a contagious rate that is very serious. I mean, to handle all these changes and disruptions and crises is exactly what leadership is about, however. And the survival of the fittest couldn't have been more visibly displayed than what we're seeing now. It's not about being the strongest or the biggest or the most traditional or the most impressive business or industry or country. It's about being the most adaptable to embracing the change as an opportunity. Traditional industries and conservative industries, and I've worked as a business consultant in many of them, like banking and, for example, energy supply, are completely changed and reorganized. Nobody talks today about whether or not we should have online banking. I mean, it's a fact. The question is now rather, should we have brick and mortar banking? Because who goes there? So education is next, and it's already happening. And I believe that going from brick and mortar towards more online is only part of that change. The internet, again, with its paradigm changing opportunities, has impacted higher education deeper the last 20 years, I would claim, than the previous 800 years of accumulated change. And here are my 10 insights on the next few years of change in higher education. The next few years, I'm talking 5-7 years, and some of it is already happening. Number one, universities, and that is the fittest one that will survive, because I can predict that there will be a big rate of close downs, of bankruptcies, because universities do not have a viable financial model around the world. It will change. They have to change their core systems of being self-serving institutions to become much more entrepreneurial and much more student-centric and accountable for what the students learn and how it impacts their professional career. And this is my previous Dr. Sancheti was also mentioning this, and I agree very much with what he addressed in this regard. We have to move from being extremely expensive, both for students and for the taxpayers in countries where education is so-called free of charge. And they will have to operate with a reasonable cost-benefit-based pricing. Number two is that half of college students never graduate, and it's similar all over the world. And the two key factors are lack of direction and social disconnection. So sophisticated e-advising system will monitor students' engagement and degree development, and the best institutions will have human resources and not robots. There's a lot of misunderstanding in what the online institution can and should do. But the human touch is very important, especially in the student services, in the student follow-up, to assist and support the student to stay on track to a degree. The third insight I have is that students will be getting their credits from multiple providers, embracing online courses and rejecting traditional curricula that are serving as universities' cash cows. The fourth, tradition, stability, prestige will be displayed. It will not be so important what university. The snobbery will disappear. It will have to disappear because we can simply not afford it if you're a young person wanting to have an education. You have to look at the cost benefit and the quality. That's the most important. This stability and prestige will be displaced by innovative ways to teach, responsiveness in program development so that there's a usefulness rather than status. I never understood the status drive in snobbery, and I dislike snobbery in any part of life. My fifth insight is that virtual gaming and virtual reality and simulations, animations, and eventually artificial intelligence will become dominant tools in digital learning. And I'm talking now 5-7 years from now, and some of this is already happening as I'm speaking, and it has happened. And this will happen both at universities, at colleges, and primary school level. My sixth insight is that the science of learning will become the core of instructional design. So learning objectives, mastery, close alignment between assessment and learning goals, more focus on active learning, real-world cases, social skills, teamwork, and values will be key elements in course design. Seventh, an increasing number of brick and mortars university already offers a large part of their curriculum and instruction online. Don't forget, I remember my son studied in Canada at the University of Toronto approximately 10 years ago, and I asked him, how much of your time being in a auditorium, in a classroom, how much of your time are you on your computer? And he said, without much hesitation, he said, I would say 70% of the time we work on the computer and look into the screen, even when we are in a classroom situation. This is 10 years ago. So that even brick and mortars will have to offer a large part of their curriculum and instruction online. It goes without saying, and they're actually already doing it, even if they're not online, because a lot of the teaching is happening via electronic systems. So there will be blended classes with a high degree of online classes, and that will become the norm. My eighth insight is that there will be significant fundamental change in public higher education, because financial constraints and student demands and much tougher competition will force politicians, faculty, educational boards, accrediting units to design the education to serve the students' needs rather than being self-serving interests and prestige. And the COVID crisis will accelerate several of these points, but especially the point I'm talking about now, because the impact on all countries' gross national products is so severe. So we have to go back to serious war situations and previous serious crises to see something similar. So there will simply be a fight to get enough funding, whether through taxes or otherwise, to keep up the higher education model. And my ninth insight is that new generation of students that are grown up with so-called social medias, they understand that online learning promote and build strong networks. I'm representing a university where we have offer undergraduate degrees, and we have adult students attending our university, but I believe that this will also spread to first level university education and graduate education. And I believe that the best online universities are already creating a sense of community. I know that we spend a lot of time on it at the University of Fredericton through team-based projects, interactions, and collaborative training. And it's almost like with, I have to turn my computer on again here because it goes on sleep mode. It's almost like when you have an online meeting, or when I have an online presentation like this, I know that I have to be much more disciplined and much more prepared than if I just went into a meeting room to meet a group of people and then talk based on a more loose agenda. So I'm not concerned about the discipline and the quality, because the online format will force that, and whoever is going to cheat on this will lose their brand and lose their business or their right to live. So this is really about the survival of the fittest, which is not about strength and muscles. It's about being adaptable. And my 10th insight is almost then like a summary maybe, but it's the competition will be much, much tougher. So brick and mortar institutions are already seeking partnership with successful online universities in order to rapidly and effectively increase their own online offerings. And several of these points are about online, but if you listen to them also, I'm not only talking about online, and I believe in a blended model. There will never be 100% online education, at least not in our lifetime, but there will be good blended model, and there will be good online models. And I have first-hand experience now during the last 3-4 months that a lot of very, very serious, interesting institutions have been seeking some kind of partnership with us, because as I've told you, when we were prepared 100% for this crisis, a little bit by coincidence, a lot of institutions were taken by surprise, even though they knew that they should have prepared something also for online training maybe. And I saw that from the beginning as a big problem, that this could actually not only be a good promoter for online education, but it could also be, this crisis be a huge demoter for online education, because a lot of brick and mortar institutions had to turn around and deliver far below pari and far below quality online teaching with whatever systems they managed to come up with during a few short days and weeks. And I've seen it firsthand. I have a daughter studying in the US. I have a younger daughter here in Switzerland going to high school. And I talk with both of them and see what they're doing. And I'm not very impressed by the online offerings they're getting, because it's really, really crisis solutions. So guys, whether you like them or not, these are my insights, and I'm happy to discuss them with you. Thank you very much.
Nice, insightful thoughts, Mr. Kjetil Sandermoen. You have rightly mentioned that online education is not the future; it is very much present right now, and we have emphasized on that the changing, how we have to adapt the change, and what will be the future roadmap for our not only education and other sectors also. I am not emphasizing more because we have to go for the other panelists. So as per the schedule, we are now going to the next panelist, to Professor Dr. Anoop Swarup. It is my privilege to introduce Professor Swarup. He is the recipient of the International Hiroshima Peace Award, Presidential Award, Republic of India, and many honors, fellowships, and awards. He is a MSc in first position gold medalist, MS high distinctions, MBA from Australia, MPhil also with the gold medalist, PhD, and all other higher degree for FA London, FA Calcutta, FA UK. And Professor Swarup has over 40 years of the distinguished professional experience in the diverse role as an educationist, poet, peace activist, life scientist, futurist, social entrepreneur, and civil servant, and the United Nations representative appointed by the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. He has been a keynote speaker, resource person, and visiting professor with the universities in India and abroad. He has several cited research papers and the books to his credit. Notable are Aloha, released by the Honorable President Sri Ramnath Kovind, and Arcadia, Book of the Poems, gives non-violence a chance, released by the former Prime Minister of India, and gives non-killing a chance, released by the former President and Bharat Ratna Sri Pranab Mukherjee, Indian Civilization Through the Millennium, Bio-Innovations and Entrepreneurship, the world of the money laundering, commercial fraud, and the financial crimes, and regional economic engagement and free trade agreement. He has been the editor at large as the Jargon International Journal of the Contemporary Research, chief editor of International Journal of the Research of Engineering and Technology, and editor, Nice Journal of Business, listed in the Kells Directory USA. Presently, he is the Vice Chancellor of the founding Vice Chancellor of the Jargon Lake City University and the Chairman Center for the Global Non-Killing Hawaii US. I would like to request her to take the session.
Thank you, Dr. Tanmoy Chakraborty. My gratitude, first of all, to you for such a generous introduction. And I know that we must be falling short of time. But at the outset, let me also compliment Dr. Vaneeta Aggarwal. This is a very good initiative taken by you. And I'm sure, going by the last 2 days of proceedings, this must have been very, very informative, very interesting, and very much enriching for everyone. Now, I can straight away come, but let me also mention that Professor V.S. Chauhan, Dr. Sancheti, Dr. Sandermoen, whatever you mentioned, I am totally in agreement. The only point is that now whatever is to be said has been said. So I will try to be very precise, and I will try and stick to my time. So let me come straight away, and I'll put on a different cap, because the topic which was mentioned to me is values and innovation. And these are uncertain times. So rightly enough, the topic is quite apt. But let me talk about futurism, because I've been a futurist, and I'll quote from Arthur C. Clarke, one of my most, I would say, a science fiction writer, and I must have read all his books. So I should mention, when he was talking about the future is, and the only way to explore and also to find the limits of the possible is to go to the limits of the impossible. That is what he said. And this nobody thought, as Professor Sancheti was mentioning a little time back, December 30th, we celebrated the new year. We didn't know what 2020 would be like. But now I've written a number of columns on what the future would be like. So I can just quickly tell that nobody is very sure this may continue maybe for another year or maybe 2 years also, even with vaccine or without vaccine. So let me say that we'll have to adopt the new normal. And when I was talking about Arthur C. Clarke, something came into my mind, and that is nothing changes if nothing changes. So my only point is that only with change is possible. Now, Dr. Sandermoen was giving the example of brick and mortar banks. Who thought that now we'll be doing all our banking virtually? Same would be the case with universities. And to my mind, we have to be adaptable. We have to change, and unless we change ourselves, we are the fittest, will not survive. So that is the way forward. Now, when I was talking about this, I was thinking about VUCA. You know, VUCA is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now, in these VUCA times, what is very important is that we have to be adaptable and we have to keep embracing the changes as they come. Now, I'll not go into the details of a new world, a virtual world, the new normal. The virtual world is digital twins, cloud computing, virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and of course, I should have mentioned the important thing is the 3 dimensions, holograms, and very recently now we have got, you must have all heard about the geo goggles, the 3D goggles. You can see and talk like we are having this session today. I would be seeing all the panelists and maybe the participants also in a virtual world, in a hologram. So that would be the new normal to my mind. Now let us think about the change which is going to happen. I entirely agree that the new world will be a blended world, especially in universities. And in a blended world, what is so important is that we have to adapt to the future. Future would be positive to my mind unless we take it positively. Now the point is that I should come, in fact I should mention a couple of years back, 5 years back in 2015, I was delivering a keynote talk in Xi'an in China. And in that keynote talk, what was very interesting that I was asked to speak about the MOOCs, massive open online courses. And there was a worry among the universities of Asia Pacific that they will disappear because MOOCs are coming, virtual learning is coming. So I mentioned that MOOC is like a tsunami. Many tsunamis have come and they have gone. And similarly, many epidemics have also come. They have gone. But this one was the worst ever. That is true. Every 100 years we've seen epidemics after all. But now we are going to adapt and change for the better. Now in this situation, what I was telling is that we will adapt. And I never knew that in 5 years there will be an opportunity or a time when the whole challenge will turn us upside down, settle, as I say. So it is a challenge which can be a full opportunity for all of us. Very recently, just last week, I was having I'm on the governing board of the Universities of Asia Pacific. Now we were having a discussion, a board meeting, where we were thinking, and we had earlier circulated our online survey, where we felt that let us see and let us learn together as to what lessons we can derive from the new change which has happened in the last 3-4 months. And what I realized was our problems were similar. In fact, I can quickly mention that Cambridge University has already conducted all online examinations. Very much earlier in the month of April and May itself, we wanted to carry on our examinations. But it all got delayed, as you know. And in the month of June, we completed all our virtual examinations. So we formulated a bold approach where we foresaw the future. And what we felt was that it is very important, not only for the final year students, but also for other students, that there has to be an examination. It cannot be a walkover, it cannot be passover, it cannot be it can be an open book examination, there is no problem with that. In a semester pattern where learning evaluation is continuous, we should adapt to that sort of a change. So the lessons which I got from everybody, from the universities in Asia Pacific, that I can quickly cite, and I'll be very precise so that I do not take too much of time. In this survey, it was over that 3 months timeline, and what we found was that there were some pros, some cons. Now what were the pros? The pros were flexibility in learning. Yes, of course. Online learning provides a great deal of flexibility. There is also are much more positive participation. In India, we are confronted with a situation that students may not attend. So there is an issue about discipline. So in online learning, in a virtual classroom, everybody's attendance gets recorded, including the teachers. And now we have formulated a method so that the teachers record the entire session, even the question answers. So that becomes a very good record, and everybody is alert, attentive, conscientious, which is much more important than anything else, which is mostly a liability in our country, and people do not follow that sort of discipline, which is so important. So I should mention that there is a scope for unlimited learning, sharing. This is a great opportunity. Of course, on the pro is also that there is no transportation cost. Even brick and mortar costs get reduced, but then there are many other costs. The cost of technology, the cost of good teachers, that is happening. So if I call that among the pros, there were certain other issues, and practical industrial training, internships, how do we carry it on? So as you may be aware that even in engineering or in science, where do we have a very important practical component, we have been working so that we can devise methods, even holograms, even the entire business process engineering, even the mechanical, I would say that the online testing, also the online construction of equipment, which is very much possible with a hologram, and that is quite being done. There is a lot of innovation which is happening in the learning management systems, in those protocols. So now the issue is whole lot of different things happening. There is another very important pro, and that is health issues. Now, even the handicapped, they can attend classrooms sitting in their own homes. They don't have to run to the class. But then there is a very big, I would say, negative to it. Students, when they come to the university, they want that sort of an ambience, that social norm which was there, friends, talking, discussing with teachers. That thing will be missing at least for the next few months. So, but we have to embrace that change. Maybe in the time to come, it will again back to the same point as we were. Now, let me also talk about something else, that is cost. We were discussing about the cost, and that is less transaction cost will happen. Maybe the cost of education will go down if the numbers go up. And as Professor Chauhan was mentioning, even in Harvard or say Cambridge or Oxford, they might start thinking that instead of a class number of 50, they can have 500 or even 5,000. Why not? But then that will be a very equalizing world, a world where we share. And what is very important is equity when it comes to India. It comes to cost when it comes to our country. And these things are equally important. Quality will come because of the discipline, because of conscientiousness which is required. So let me mention that certain things, for example, assessments. Assessments have to be online, of course, but these assessments have to be very, very creative. I would say that better participation can be ensured, quality, of course, as I mentioned, and what is equally, again, very, very important, that the social interaction, which would be missing, will have to devise new methods. I would call it better innovation, which is in the making when it comes to social interaction in the classroom or otherwise. I can also mention that there is a big issue in India, at least, network connectivity. Yeah, I still remember that about 2 decades back, Government of India had launched the National Knowledge Network, NKN. Now that was a very good move, where we were proposing to have a good broadband connection bandwidth for every institution in the country, irrespective of public or private. And this is what I saw in Australia. They had asked Telstra. Now every village, every rural habitat is now connected through the national broadband network. So that is what the government will have to invest, like we have been investing on the roads, we will have to invest in the broadband network. I would say that the cost of technology might go up, but it will also mean better efficiency. So I won't take much time, but maybe it will be cheaper for the students, much better in terms of I will say adaptation, also much better in terms of equity and also in terms of the competition, because better competition means better response to the students. After all, I have always felt that students are our first stakeholders. So face-to-face teaching will go. I don't call it face-to-face because even now we are face-to-face. I would call it as brick and mortar thing will go. And physical distancing, of course, has to be maintained for the time being. But the assessment presents a challenge, and that challenge we can always cope with. I would straight away come to another very interesting discussion which I had a couple of years back in Washington at the World Intellectual Property Organization, where Thomas Friedman, I'm sure that most of us must have read those books, at least seen those books. The world is flat, and he was alluding to the fact that because of technology, the world is becoming flat. It's no more round, or it's no more different than, and you know that advantage he felt will be to China and India. He came up with another book, and that was us, and he was talking of China. Now, when I was talking to Thomas Friedman over a cup of coffee, I asked him, okay, why is not alluding anymore to India? Then he mentioned, and I should say that here, and he mentioned something very interesting, and that applies to India itself. He said at the time that what China has been doing, and this is pre-COVID-19, what China is doing, we are afraid, because they are going so fast, so much, I would say, progressing so well that US perhaps is not going to cope, and India not at all. So I said, where you find the fault? And that is what he said, and I should cite it here. There are 3 C's, he said. The first C is character. Character and values, because this is a topic for me, so I should mention values and character come with good schooling, and good schooling come with good investment. At least 6% of the GDP in India should go. We have never been able to spend more than 1.8% of the GDP on education as such. Then he said, okay, character, values, good schooling, fine. But next is creativity or innovation. Creativity and innovation would come with good university education, with good investment in research and development, R&D, which is missing. Of course, some movement has been made in recent times, but still it has to be much, much more than what it is. And the third and most important C, he said, is character, creativity, and the third one is cooperation or collaboration. He felt that collaboration and cooperation which has to be there is not there, as he saw. So this is what I'll say. I won't take much time, but I will very quickly cite from Peter Drucker. And what Peter Drucker once mentioned in one of our interactions in an international conference, he said, for something new, you have to drop something old. So what was old was the brick and mortar, the classroom experience. Of course, there are many pluses to that. I won't say that we should do away with it entirely. But the fact is, we have to adapt to the new, and we have to survive as the fittest. Dr. Sandermoen alluded to that fact. So I will say that what is possible now is truly once only imagined. In these are the words of Albert Einstein, you must have heard, that it was all imagined. Nobody thought that we would be doing a lot of things that are happening. A couple of days back, we went as near to the sun as possible. We could even picturize it. So I won't take much time, but I will say that geo-goggles have come. A lot of other innovations are in the move, and they will come. I won't go into those details, but I'll say that we should be ready. We should be future ready to adopt that change. And if we adopt that change, we will be a better country, better society, and a better world. And let us hope for the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Such nice presentation. Whatever you have mentioned, that is very rightly you said. The 3 C's, definitely that 3 C's are required for us. And as you mentioned, that we must be ready, and we are ready, sir, for that, to adopt new things. Now we should go for the next panelist, and my very good friend, Dr. Vaneeta. I would like to introduce Dr. Vaneeta. Vaneeta, are you online?
Yes, I am online.
Sure, okay. Dr. Vaneeta, she is the CEO of the N Strategic LLP, and she has done such Herculean task to organize this virtual summit. First, for that, actually, I would like to congratulate her for such nice conduct of such an important event. Dr. Vaneeta is the alumnus of the Delhi University, and she is the top ranking holder of the DU all through the 5 years of the BSc Honors Physics and MSc Physics with Electronics, and qualified the very important exam of the UGC NAAC in the 1991, and very interestingly, the MSc final semester. And Dr. Vaneeta received her first appointment letter as a guest faculty in Acharya Narendra Dev College, Delhi University, even before the final results were declared. And she chose that undertake the PhD before going to the LGBT Khalsa College as a assistant professor in 1993. Dr. Vaneeta obtained the PhD with the UGC CSI Research Fellowship in the Electronic Science specialization in the semiconductor device, modeling and simulation from the University of Delhi in 1996, with reviews for her research work from the internationally renowned and reviewed journals, quoting it as the original research work. With a membership of the IEEE, she continued the postdoctoral research work, moving her interest from the micro-dimensional devices to the nano-dimensional devices, and presented her work in the several national international conference symposium along with the publication in the international journals. She has visited a number of countries like Singapore, Germany, Italy, Australia, Sweden, and so on, and closely worked with the several bodies and have the publication in international renowned journals, achieved the considerable success in her field by the age of 32 only, visited Abdas Salam ICTP in Italy in 2001 for the workshop and interacted with the faculty from around the world. The seed of the globalizing of education was shown during this trip. She has been a strong follower and supporter of the online learning through the virtual media since 2000. Introducing ICT in her teaching pedagogy in early 2000 made her popular among the students. Feeling a strong lack of communication and update on the international standard and development in research methodology and skill upskilling, solely depending upon the published work, she founded a super specialized networking group of semiconductor device modeling and simulation group on LinkedIn Professional Network in 2008. Today, with more than 4,200 members ranging from the founder, vice president to research scientists and enrolled PhD students from the companies like Intel, Qualcomm, Global Foundry, and several leading universities from the world, the group is actively engaged among its members, having the purpose of immediate knowledge transfer, quick access to opening in postdoctoral position, research fellowship, conference, and guidance among the members. She worked at the Khalsa College, North Campus, Delhi University, and for more than 22 years before calling it quit in 2015 as the Associate Professor in Physics and Electronics. She joined Acquire Consulting in 2016 in global investment banking company to handle international higher education partnership and gained significant clients. As she finds that the scope of the services is much wider than expected, she founded her own venture last year on 31st December 2019 by the name of L Strategic LLP, and has been actively working since then on a vision to bring global standards to the higher education in India. As COVID-19 tipped into the Indian skies and lockdown was announced, she felt a deep connect with the final year students waiting for the placement and job. She designed and hosted free webinars for them, calling several industry experts on the panel. The reputation of this heartfelt cause reached offshore too, with the participants joining from as many as 12 countries for HR skill webinars, launched a forum of the young professional and publicizing e-magazine fortnightly with both higher education and corporate in focus. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Vaneeta to enlighten us. Hello. Dr. Vaneeta, are you online?
Yes, please. Thank you, Professor Tanmoy, for a generous introduction and for taking up today's day. It makes my work easier today. I will start my topic, which is globalization of education, and this is in continuation with what our other speakers explained. So, adaptability, survival of the fittest, challenges of COVID crisis, then you have collaboration as Professor Anoop Swarup said. So internationalization or globalization is a expanded or extended form of collaboration, I would say. In today's time, if we look at internationalization of education, which is a multidimensional, multi-layered, and multifaceted process, and it depends upon the host country's culture, social and economic values, and it can be done in many ways. And our new education policies, the latest one, has also included that there should be emphasis on internationalization of education, and so far so they have given top 100 eminent universities and institutes an opportunity to start collaboration with international universities and institutes. The most popular way of internationalization or globalization is to call foreign students to our institutes to come on Indian soil and study. That's the most popular way of internationalization of education in Western world also. So if we look at past, say 40 years back, commercialization of higher education in terms of recruitment of foreign students is one and most popular aspect of globalization in higher education. In 1979, when Margaret Thatcher took over as Prime Minister in Britain, British universities were known as the leaders in providing cost-free subsidized education to overseas students. But she took over a very low British economy condition of her country. And she appointed Secretary of State for Education, and the Secretary of State for Education was baffled to find that there was £100 million cut on university budget, and he could not understand that how would he manage with such a cut on quality education and on maintaining the university. So then there was a civil servant working in Treasury, and she suggested that why to subsidize the fee, the tuition fee of overseas students, you simply ask them full cost fee and stop the subsidization. And this way, within 1 year, all the British universities, even the smallest one, were having recruitment campus all over the world. And the main purpose was to recruit as many as foreign students, because that will boost the funding, that will boost the economy of the country. So that's why higher education is also a major factor in increasing the base economy or financial funding for institutes as well as the nation. So attracting foreign students is one way, but it is not the only way. There are many other ways in which we should internationalize our education with many, many benefits of this phenomenon. So I'll come to the other ways and how I get into globalization of education, as Professor Tanmoy also told during my first trip to Italy, where I visited Abdus Salam ICTP in Trieste for a microelectronics workshop. There were tutorials from faculty members who were called from different universities from all around the world, and it was an amazing experience to be taught by them. And I found that if we can have such faculty experience at our institutes, it gives us an exposure to variety of, how they are being taught when they were students, how we are being taught as students. And then that was the trip when I found that the zeal from being a follower of curriculum to creator of something was sown into me. And I knew that it is not possible into my regular job. I need much time and effort to start something new on that line. So I started doing something small steps, whatever I could do in my capacity for my students, and started introducing ICT from my own level, at my own level, because university were not giving that kind of bandwidth or even projectors in classrooms at that time. Yeah, I'm talking about 2001. So what Government of India also gives some possibilities is some fellowships to visit research labs. If you are a research scholar, you can visit some foreign research lab or on some fellowship for about 6 months or 1 year. So that is also a way for internationalization of higher education. That should become a norm in higher education institutes, that if some student is enrolled as a research scholar doing PhD, a period of about 6 months should be provided to work in a foreign research lab. And similarly, we may also call foreign students to work into our research labs. So far, so this is being done in IITs and major institutes and central universities, some of the central universities, but that solely depends upon the initiative of concerned professors. If somebody is interested enough and has exposure of international labs, has contacts, then they can promote their students, but it should become a norm in higher education. So, for example, when I was a research scholar, I did not got this information in my institute or in my research lab. I had to search through, internet was also not there. We forget that internet was there in those times. So we have to talk to peer researchers from different groups that what you are doing, and we come to know that so and so has gone to Germany to work on so and so fellowship. Then we come to know, okay, this is a process where we can apply and go for 6 months postdoc work or as a PhD student in a different environment at all. So that kind of experience should be given to our research scholars at research level. And for that, universities have to come forward to develop partnerships and collaborations with institutes in USA, UK, Australia, world over, Singapore. The other way of globalization is student-faculty exchange, which is becoming popular over last decade. As you must be knowing, universities send a group of students, undergraduate students also, to some foreign university, and they get exposure about curriculum, academic structure, infrastructure, professors, teaching pedagogy, tutorials, and also taken to some corporate office or industrial plants. City tour is also a part of such educational trips. This is a multicultural and multifaceted exposure to local students. But we should also engage such universities to send their foreign their students to our campuses. And for that, we need to invest, as Professor Swarup rightly mentioned, we have to invest some amount in developing, safety standards, the basic cultural mindset to welcome foreign students on our soil so that they also feel safe in our country. Other way is faculty exchange apart from student exchange. So like now, online learning is there. And if we have partnerships and collaborations with some of the universities who can depute one of their professors or faculty members to teach at least one module of our curricula in particular course stream to our students through online blended learning. So offline lectures are being taken care of by a local faculty, while online lectures are being delivered by a foreign faculty. So by sitting in our home, that is by being in our home institute, we are providing a multinational exposure of teaching to our students. That is a brilliant way of internationalization of education. But there are certain challenges in going through this process. For example, do we have curricula paired at par with other universities so that when the students from here are going to other universities for higher education, is there a smooth transition from undergraduate course of India to a post-graduation course in some other country? So curricula pairing needs to be there. Second most important, one of the most important factor is that Indian timeline of sessions is pretty different from what is followed in USA or UK or Australia. So we need to match this timing also so that not much of time is wasted for a student when he goes from UG to PG or from this country to other country. This will also help students of kids of expats, for example, if they are transferred. For example, recently US changed their visa conditions, and many students were stranded because they were in some other stream and curricula. They were following a certain standard as per US, and when they came back to India, they were told here that it's not at par. They have to repeat a year. So this kind of loss of year should not be there. And secondly, if we go to infrastructure, for example, there is a lot of infrastructure demands, teaching pedagogy, support services like concierge, visa support services, remedial classes, part-time jobs, placements, accommodation, storage facility when they are going out for vacation. These all support services and help sections should be provided to foreign students if we are enrolling foreign students in the institute, in the campus itself. As Dr. Swarup mentioned, the assessment part is very crucial, because where we are, our higher education students in this COVID-19 era were ready to give technology-enabled online classes, and but assessment was the one place where it got stuck. Connectivity is one issue, because connectivity in rural areas is one major issue, that all the students are not able to get connected. But in Delhi University, recent challenge was open book examination. And being from Delhi University, when I heard about it, I knew they are not ready for open book examination. Neither the faculty nor the students, they are just not into it, and it won't happen like that. So some of the private universities are really doing very well in terms of making their students aware about open book examination, plagiarism. We have to do away with the rote learning. So we need to put in novel way of assessment and make our students adaptable to these new systems, because all over the world, if you go, nobody does rote learning. They do case studies, they do open book studies. So for example, my son returned from UK. He was studying in final year business management in UK. And just a day before flights were banned from UK to India, he came back. And his online classes were going on campus were going on, but he resumed to online classes immediately. And after 15 days, their session was complete, and exams were to happen in April. Date sheet came, and along with that, there was an offer. The offer was the one option is you go for open book exam, give the exam, and get your degree in case you pass. Second option is you forego with exam. You say we cannot give exam. We will give you a degree, but it will have a condition that you did not appear for the exam. So there will be kind of stamping on that degree. Conditional degree will be there. And he went for open book exam, and I could see that open book exam was not that simple. It was not a cakewalk at all. It was a case study, and there were strict rules that no name should be mentioned from the book. No references should be mentioned from the book. No answer should be copied from the book. And it will be, there are softwares in the university which check the plagiarism. And he was so careful that even a word should not match what is in the reference book. He says reference book is not to be used. Teachers' tutorials are not to be used. Lecture materials is not to be used. So there is clear guideline. And because of his last 4 years experience of study, he says, if I write anything from this, I know I am going to fail this exam. And they were given 24 hours. So paper opened, they got a paper through their blackboard system, and he studied the questions. It was totally case study, and they were given 24 hours to answer back, submit the question papers, and full planned, organized way date sheet was there. He gave out all the papers. Results came last week, He fortunately passed it and was very happy that degree program is over. He's passed one milestone. So similar system should be there in India also. We have to create a system of open book examination because it has to do a lot with rote learning. In schools, what we are teaching our students, take the book, learn the text, write it in the exam. For 12 years, we are doing this. So how can we expect that in college, in undergraduate studies, he will just do away with it? He won't understand. We have to do away with this in school only. That is one way. And secondly, why do we say that internationalization of education will help our children or young generation, apart from increasing the economy through enrolling foreign students, how it will benefit our own students, our own local students. Today is a world of globalization. As we all know, everybody, multinationals are working in India. People get jobs. They have to work for clients sitting in UK, in US as per their regulation. If we have international education here itself, they are already ready for the international or multinational job culture. And we have to help them in learning these skills. They should not be burdened. Now you have done UG as per Indian system or PG as per Indian system. Now you go for another skill set, spend some more bucks in learning skills as per multinational culture or multinational regulations. So that's where internationalization or globalization of education is really, really important, because ultimately we need such skills which are not local centric, which are globally valid. So that can happen only when we imbibe all the international trends into our higher education system via curriculum, via teaching pedagogy, via infrastructure, via support system, via assessment quality, and we are at par with the global standards. It's not saying that Indian system is low, but we need to be at par for a seamless transition from this system to the other system, be it jobs or be it higher studies. That's what I'm saying. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Vaneeta. It is nice to hear you, and you rightly mention about the importance of the internationalization and globalization in the higher education, especially in the context of India. Now, you will take the question. So there is one question that is very important, and especially I know that one it is for Sancheti sir. Someone has asked about that. Can we overcome the chalta hai attitude as long as an underperformer is assured for the secure government job under some clause or other?
I didn't get the question fully, but I think
he's asking about that. Can we overcome the chalta hai attitude as long as underperformer is assured a secure government job?
Yeah, so it's more to do with the society at large. Education is an integral part of that. You know that we work in an environment where I say it sometimes that when I'm in office, I'm more worried about my home, and when I'm at home, I'm more worried about my office. That is the kind of culture for the work we follow here. And the reason for that are many. I won't go into that by pointing my finger at something, but I think slowly and gradually we have got ourselves trapped into this process. And once again, the answers can easily be said that this government, that government, this politician, this bureaucracy, or this institution can do it. I would say that the charity will begin at home in this particular case. One would have to correct yourself, and I would very easily say that each one of us will have to follow certain basics and principles, and then only it can be eradicated or removed. Otherwise, there is no easy answer. In Hindi, we say "Pure kuein mein bhang hai." Everyone is kind of affected by this or influenced by this. So yes, it's not a good state. Question is very, very appropriate. And it is very easy in government. As I said, in government, any decision making is generally sluggish. That is the cost of transparency. That we have to be transparent. Even if I have to remove an odd person who is at a complete fault and caught red-handed, I think the process will be such a long process, and the institution will not have such a right memory that eventually, after 5-10 years of maybe dealing with a case in legal way or other way, the person will win because of whatever right or wrong reasons, and ultimately we pay the price of what we call such a style of functioning. So that is why I refer to Chalta hai attitude, but I don't mean that all of us are bad. Indians are good. Indians, when they go outside, there is nothing called Chalta hai. We are Daudta hai in that sense. We do whatever is required. We are capable. Only thing is the self-correction is to come from us. Thank you.
The next question.
There is one more question for Professor Sancheti. Please put some light on placement opportunities for graduating students during this pandemic year. And this is also for Dr. Anoop Swarup. Both the panelists, please. Yeah.
Professor Swarup, I think I'll request you to answer it first, and then I'll take it on.
Okay, sure, Professor Sancheti, you have rightly. So I'll very quickly come to this point because we already had online placements a little bit than that, and it was not at all a problem, and a whole lot of opportunities which are again opening up. I agree that for almost 3 months there was a total lockdown when it came to jobs, to employment opportunities. But again, the jobs and employment opportunities are opening. India has got one very big advantage, and I should mention that we are not at all export-driven economy. We are internal consumption-driven economy. So the whole lot of industry, manufacturing units, even service enterprises who are looking for youngsters with blood in them who can do their job, and they are again, all of them are opening up. So if I say what our Prime Minister has mentioned, jaan bhi, jahan bhi. So jahan agar rahe aur kuch chahiye, so we need factories, we need output, and there are a whole lot of youngsters who are waiting there. So I think placements will be happening, are happening. We have been successful with them, although I won't say that the success is to the extent as it was last year, but it is picking up. So there is a positive movement. Thank you.
I can also echo the same sentiments. There is nothing wrong as of now. We have been put on hold for some time because of COVID. Everything has come to stand still for some time. But that doesn't mean that the industries will go away, or the jobs will go away, or the production or services will go away. It's all coming. At least in SRM, I can say that things have already started. Lots of students are getting quality placements. And as it is, we know that in the current scenario, IT and ITES jobs are much more than anything else. And you can possibly see that in futuristic world, if you see the new profiles of the jobs, I think lots of more jobs are going to come in this. Those jobs possibly can be done from home also to a large extent. And that is the reason why I would say that as far as the engineering domain is concerned, which is more centric towards job placements, not much of effect. But I can very well say that the effect is there on the jobs when it comes to tourism or travel or hotel, which is there. I think there are certain impacts which are there on that. So there will be certain sectors which will have slowdown, but they are not necessarily that it will be a permanent slowdown. Once, let's say we are all corona clear, I'm sure all of us will be running outside to enjoy something in terms of going to a new city, new place, staying outside, eating outside. Once again, it will come with a bang. So let's not worry about the temporary phases. We should take them in our stride, these temporary phases. Jobs, at least as far as India is concerned, it's not that bad. It will probably remain as it was pre-COVID. It will come to that state of post-COVID. Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Tanmoy.
I think we have lost the.
No. There is another question, sir.
Okay.
This is reluctant acceptance of the ODL and online education-based degree programs due to the associated social stigma that are feeding into the acceptance by the employers?
I will say something where I made a point on this. Professor Chauhan also said something on this. Yes, the social stigma is there, but it is purely because the way we handled the online or distance or virtual education. Earlier avatar was distance only. The new avatars are there. As I said, I was a member of DAC and I've been involved in this. I've seen that you open one course today and there'll be thousands of applications tomorrow because everyone thought it's easy to get degree. And I would once again not name, but there are universities which operated with a mandate that they have to grow and grow rather than really worry about the quality. And that was the reason it became substandard. The model was not wrong. Model gave enough liberty to the learner to do things right, but learner probably misused the position at that time. That was number one. Number two was at that time the IT or the internet or this kind of support system which we are seeing today was just not existing. So maybe the focus on distance education was a little more stronger at the time when the support was not stronger. So that distorted the thing. And then the third thing possibly is in India, at least, there was too much of hype about the degrees rather than about the learning. So people thought that distance education is a rather easy way to accumulate degrees rather than really doing the learning. So all of us are to be blamed, the institutions, people like you and me, and of course the learner also. I don't think so industry or the society would be put fully at fault because the industry wanted people who are capable. And therefore, if they look down upon the distance education of erstwhile time, there is nothing wrong. Who will do the correction? It's only us. Why it is important? Because it will take us a long way. Why it is becoming even more important? Because now we have to learn at every stage in our life. Every 5 years, we have to change directions in years. And I cannot sit in a classroom beyond 25 years of age. I cannot come out of my job and put a semester in an institution every now and then to once again refresh myself. And therefore, it will have to be done continuously. And if it is to be done, the revival of distance, virtual, online, flexible, everything has to be there. And that is what has been echoed by, I think, every single speaker, including Professor Anoop, Swarup, Professor, I think, Professor Sandermoen, and of course, Vaneeta also talked about that, and Professor Chauhan and myself. So let's hope things will improve for us and will increase the GER also with the distance education going up. Thank you.
Professor Sancheti, I'll just follow up on this. I entirely agree with you. And in fact, I wanted to mention this, but I thought my topic is something else I didn't mention. But I feel that ODL should be opened up. What we really need is checks and balances, which are missing in the earlier, and there are some black sheep, of course, as you rightly mentioned. So we have to, in a country like India, which is vast, and where there are very good number of learners, they would like to learn, they would like to move forward. So I think government has to open it up. There are checks and balances which are required and they are most welcome.
So could I also say something about this? I agree with the previous two speakers, and it's an excellent question. I believe that the stigma around online education, whether it's a social stigma or it's about being a degree mill, is very different looked upon around the world. The early U.S. degree mill online education damaged very much not only online education but education. But I mean, we live in a world today that it's even accepted that people meet their spouses online. To be honest, I'm in the online business, but I'm worried that too much is happening online. I want people to meet socially also. But it is a fact around the world that this is happening. And I think that I believe that the attitude around this, what is stigmas and not stigmas, is going to change with the younger generations because they grew up with online, with the internet, with a completely different conceptual understanding of what is going on. Like this is an evolution, and like all evolution, it takes time, but it will happen. It is happening. So online, good quality online education done right includes social inclusion. It includes collaboration. It includes quality testing, etc. And there's some certain things online education cannot do. And that's why I always believe we will have institutions, brick and mortar institutions and blended institutions. For example, lab testing. Certain kinds of lab testing, you have to be in a laboratory with a professor that can teach you how to do certain things. And some research. One of the previous speakers talked about research, and I am a big fan of large institutions, large universities that do so-called basic research. Because if all institutions are online and for-profit, like my university, unfortunately, there will be no basic research. And without basic research, Einstein's theories would never have seen the light of day, and we wouldn't know anything about the space, and we wouldn't probably have the internet even. So it is important not to lose this perspective also. And even applied research, we need universities, we need academic institutions to do this, because if this is only left to governments and to political ideologies, we will get biased technologies and biased development, and I don't want to live in a world without independent, highly professional institutions that take care of this. So there will be a blended model, but you can be sure that there will be a big trend, and it's accelerating because of what we're experiencing now with this COVID-19 crisis. So what it would have taken maybe 10 years to achieve is now happening in 1 year, I'm sure, because there's not one university, not one institution that are not right now looking at how are we going to get some of our programs online. So I believe the question is fair, but the stigma is going to disappear by itself. It's an evolution. And we have all a huge responsibility. I know my responsibility being a part of an online university, that we have to do this even better than a brick and mortar institution. And also because we are controlled, we're approved by peer academics, and they come from competing universities. And that's another question, and I can get back to it, but will there be more conflicts among universities? Yes, but instead of conflicts, I would call it increased competition. And it's also already happening. So, an excellent question, important question.
Yes, yes. So, I would like to check the answer from the other panelist also, that there is a question that will there be a confliction in the future among universities?
Sorry, will there be a
confliction in the future among universities?
Yeah, I am sure for one that it will be, and as I said, it's I would rather call it competition, and it will be competition among what kind of model. Should it be private? Should it be for-profit? Should it be non-profit? Should it be public? And right now it's rather chaotic, but it will find a new normal. And I think the smartest institutions, I predict that a lot of universities will be history when we look 10 years from now. When we look back, there's people I really have my trust in that say 50% of all brick and mortar universities will disappear within the next 10 years. I'm not an expert in that, so I'm only quoting what has been said and written in respected channels. But the smartest ones are the ones that want to cooperate, that finds ways to cooperate with each other so we can offer the best from both worlds.
Dr. Chakraborty, I found something very interesting. Just about a year back, I found that in China, they have got all three, private, public and government. And as you rightly mentioned, I totally agree that basic sciences, basic research has to be the forte of all universities. And in India, we had this Knowledge Commission headed by Professor Yashpal, which had recommended that any university being set up should have basic research and basic education, basic teaching, basic science as a compulsory component of the university teaching and learning curricula. So that is something very important. Yes.
Yeah, and I believe also I'm a firm believer of competition, fair competition.
Absolutely.
Because without competition we will never have good quality. So in this regard, I'm a true believer in competition and in the survival of the fittest. It's a tragedy if the unfit disappears. It's actually what brings us forward, makes us smarter, makes us more cultivated, and gives us more insights. So please let us not in one system fits all. Let's have competition, but fair competition and collaboration between independent partners.
Nice.
Professor Sandermoen said it very, very correctly. Both the competition and conflict will coexist as part of our evolution, human nature, working, progressing, whatever. Even now the conflict is there, it will remain in future. But to put it simply, it may so happen from what we are discussing today that the big fish will swallow the smaller ones. Like we are seeing in the industrial world, the big companies becoming more bigger and buying left, right, and center, acquiring them, technologies and various things. A similar position may come to the education. However, I must give one warning in terms of conflict. Our conflict will not be within us only. Our conflict would be that let's presume that Dr. Chakraborty is an expert in X thing. Right now, he's in a university system and delivering that, and the university gives a certificate and degree, and it's valued altogether, put together. But tomorrow, it must so happen that Dr. Chakraborty is sitting outside the university, still delivering the same skill and technique or whatever technology, and an industry is ready to see that Professor Chakraborty's certificate is good enough, and in that case, there'll be conflict between university and non-university also. So I think we need a wake-up call where we need to understand that that piece of paper which we give call it as a degree is probably going to be at stake. We need to deliver or produce people who have the skills, right mindset, right knowledge, right attitude towards doing certain things, and they continuously move forward by changing and growing and whatever, all those things. So yes, the conflict is always there within an individual also, what to do and what not to do. Conflict will always be there within the institutions as it is now.
I'll add to that what Sir said. Taking an example from schools. So earlier there was no preschools in normal schools. So till the age of 4 or 5 years, we used to send our kids to a separate play school. Now, if you see all the leading chains of schools, you take any name, they have opened their preschools. So you admit your child at the age of 2 or 2.5 years, and he is there till 12th class if you are not moving out of the city. Similarly, in universities, if you do not want to depend upon external agencies to provide these skill certificates, the online certificates or blended certificates, some years later, you will find universities will adapt and adopt these skill programs into their curriculum. So if you want to do 15 days program, we are having it. And branding is already there. University already are established. They have their own branding. Why the student will go to an external agency if he is getting so-and-so diploma or certificate skill program from the university itself? And you have all the infrastructure also. It will happen.
Dr. Vaneeta, you said it well. I should very quickly make a reference to the Tuning Academy. The Tuning Academy of European Union, they are already undertaking a process, and our university is a part of that process where we are trying to utilize our course content and tune them to the European content. And they likewise are learning something from us. They are doing it there also. So this civilization process will go on, competition will go on, cooperation will take place, collaboration will be there, and this world will be a better world for the ultimate stakeholder who is our student.
Yes. Correct. So shall we finish the session?
Yes, we completed. We have completed all questions also. So now.
Yeah. So I will. Thank you all the panelists for finding time to come on this higher education virtual summit. We have learned a lot, and the purpose of creating this summit, of hosting this summit, was to call all the educators from India who are working as professors and associate professors, assistant professors, research scholars in different organizations to understand and know what is being done at the leadership level. Because leaders work a lot, but sometimes their hard work and their thought process do not reach, everyone. So the purpose was to bring that common platform where a community of educationists is created, and together we need to stand together, and together we need to build this community more stronger, because higher educationists are the most talented in the country. And we know we do not get applause from society as such, but we are working hard, and we have worked amazingly in this 3 months' time. Medical facilities may be there, may not be there, but educationists have worked best in providing online education, in providing remedial courses. Some of the universities are going for online assessment, whether government has taken a stand or not taken a stand. They are working day and night. Teachers, they have worked so very hard from going offline. I know, and everybody know, how much time and effort goes into preparing one online lecture. Offline, you have notes, you will teach on board, and that has its own enjoyment. But to convert that offline lecture into an online lecture through PPTs take a lot of time and thought process and technology-friendly skills. So all of them have imbibed it. Some of them might have taken help of family members, friends, peers to create that content, but they have created and they have delivered, which is really a amazing task. So hats off to all the educationists, to all the faculty members, and hats off to all the leaders who are constantly working day and night to improve the situation, to adapt the this challenge and come out with solutions. And they are not talking about the problems only, they are coming out with the solutions. So they say, don't talk about the problem, talk about the solutions. And our education leaders are talking about the solutions. So I thank you with folded hands. Namaskar to all. And to all the participants, I will